Donald Trump has taken to social media confirming plans to declare a state of national emergency and use the military to forcibly deport illegal immigrants. Now, with some viewing this plan with trepidation, I checked in with Kristin Tate.
This is one of those issues, Chris, that the media is having a meltdown over, but average Americans fully support this. Even most Democrat voters I talk to want this to happen. In fact, a majority of all voters, 54% prior to the election, said that they support mass deportations. I'm up in Boston, very far away from the border, and everyone's talking about unchecked immigration here and how it's impacting us up in Boston. So every U.S. city is now a border town at this point, and Americans want the deportations. They support it.
Yet there are other politicians and civic leaders who are resisting this. In Boston, where you are now, the mayor has said this.
What we can do is make sure that we are doing our part to protect our residents in every possible way, that we are not cooperating with those efforts that actually threaten the safety of everyone by causing widespread fear.
So she's not cooperating with what Donald Trump plans to do. Who's going to win this battle of wills?
Well, you know, I will just say she's out of step with her own voters. Donald Trump flipped many communities here in Massachusetts that went for Biden in 2020. He significantly increased his share of the popular vote here, and it's because of immigration, Chris. Everyone I talk to says they went out and voted on this issue if they voted for Trump.
Another area where he's got a clear mandate, because he intimated this before the election, that is the installation of RFK Jr. into the health portfolio. Let's have a look at what RFK Jr. has said about some of these health issues in the past.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective. I do believe that autism does come from vaccines. They're putting in 5G to harvest our data and control our behavior.
Kristin, he looks like being the most radical appointment, doesn't he? And it could lead to all sorts of battles around the country when you're talking about vaccines, when you're talking about chlorine and water supplies.
I know his vaccine stance is more controversial, but on the core issues of health in terms of eating healthy, exercise, replacing pills and the addiction to medications in this country with common sense again, just putting good food in the bodies of our children. This is actually a message that's kind of galvanizing. So of course the media is going to, glom on to his controversial statements about vaccines. But when you look at the core of what he will be dealing with in this role, it's actually just a lot of common sense.
Yeah, coincidentally, his cousin, Caroline Kennedy, who has been serving as the US ambassador to Australia, she gave a farewell speech effectively yesterday. Here's what she had to say.
I think Bobby Kennedy's views on vaccines are dangerous, but I don't think that most Americans share them. I grew up with him, so I've known all this for a long time, and others are just getting to know him.
Yeah, so they can have that debate over Christmas dinner up your way when they all get together up there in Massachusetts over Christmas, the Kennedy clan. I want to get on to more reactions to what's happened with the election, and there's this classic bit of television from an MSNBC, shocking lefty outfit, as we all know, and a couple of their morning presenters actually went to Mar-a-Lago and had a meeting, not an interview, but just a meeting with President Trump, or President-elect Trump. Here's how they announced it to their audience.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit.
Now, Kristin, to most of us, this would seem pretty sensible. You want to talk to the incoming president. You want to hope that maybe in the future you get to interview him. But have a look at some of the reactions. Some of the colleagues of these two on MSNBC have said it's cowardice, it's disgusting, but frankly unsurprising, said one of them. And another person's gone on to X and said normalising Trump is a bad idea, period. Normalising the president-elect. These people have lost their minds, haven't they, Kristin?
Of course they have, but I will say that these Morning Joe hosts were screaming loudly for years, insisting to their viewers that Donald Trump was a Nazi fascist. Well, guess what? If they truly believed he was a Nazi fascist, would they be going to his home and meeting with him? Of course not. These Morning Joe hosts lied. They lied to their viewers. And that's why, Chris, when I go on Twitter and I see their viewers angry at them, I don't really blame the viewers. They were lied to for years into believing that Donald Trump was some sort of racist dictator. Guess what? It was a lie. And these Morning Joe hosts, Mika and Joe, contributed to the rhetoric in this country that led to Donald Trump getting shot. They should be ashamed. They should apologize, but I'm not going to hold my breath for an apology.
Yeah, you're right. The hypocrisy is strong and they should apologise, not just say they've had the meeting, but apologise and admit that they were wrong to start with. I do, again, admire, you got to admire the genius of Donald Trump, though, making them go down to his place, come down to Florida, you know, bow and kowtow to me, and then maybe I'll talk to you in the future, but perhaps maybe not. Meanwhile, of course, there is a president. The White House is occupied by Joe Biden. Nobody seems very interested in what he's got to say anymore, least of all himself. He doesn't seem to be too interested either. Have a look at him in Brazil just yesterday.
Thank you very, very much.
And there he goes, Kristin, wandering off into the jungle. Did they find him?
Oh, man, I don't know. I watch these clips and it blows. This is the biggest scandal in modern political history, Chris. The fact that we have a president of the United States who's a vegetable, and the media looks at that and they just yawn. They go, oh, whatever. Yeah, we know. Nobody can. This is a huge scandal. This is dangerous to our country and our national security, and nobody seems to care.
Well, because just like those Morning Joe hosts you mentioned, they're all complicit. They were all covering for him for so long. They were all making excuses. And for them to get upset about this now, they'd have to admit their own errors. You are so spot on. Thanks for joining us, Kristin. We'll catch up next week.
Thank you, Chris.